All right, settle in. You've asked for my advice on London. And I could give you a list of the top 10 sites, tell you the best times to see the crown jewels, or explain the fastest way to get from Heathrow to Paddington. But that's not the real advice. That's just logistics. The best advice I can give you is wrapped up in a story about my first proper trip there. On a drizzly Tuesday in October, I'd arrived with a plan. A military-grade, color-coded, minute-by-minute itinerary that would have made a drill sergeant proud. Monday was museums, Tuesday was the Tower of London, Tower Bridge, and then a sprint across the river to Borough Market before it closed. I was a tourist on a mission, ticking boxes with ruthless efficiency. That Tuesday morning, I descended into the Tube, the metallic, slightly damp smell of the underground filling my lungs. It's the city's circulatory system, and you feel its pulse down there. I was heading east on the District Line. Green Line. Simple enough. I squeezed onto a packed carriage, wedged between a woman reading a paperback and a man in a pinstripe suit staring blankly at the dark tunnel walls. This is my first piece of real advice. Embrace the tube, but expect to get it wrong. It's a rite of passage. I was so focused on my destination, so sure of my green line, that I didn't notice the train had terminated early and everyone had shuffled off. When I finally looked up, I was at a station I didn't recognize, with a name that sounded like a wizard's spell. Blackfriars. My itinerary was in tatters. Panic began to bubble in my chest. I was supposed to be at the tower by 10 a.m. sharp. I could have just jumped on the next train. But a strange impulse took over. Instead of descending back into the tunnels, I walked up the stairs and into the daylight. And that's when London really happened. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavements gleaming like polished slate. The air was crisp. I had no idea where I was, but I could see the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral peeking over a row of modern glass buildings. Instead of following the main road, I took a left down a tiny, winding lane that looked like it had been carved out of a Dickens novel. Which leads me to my second, and most important, piece of advice. Get lost on purpose. Put the map away for one afternoon. Ditch the plan. Pick a tiny alleyway that looks interesting and just walk. That alley opened up into a hidden courtyard I would never have found otherwise. It was surrounded by ancient, soot-stained brick buildings, their windows filled with the warm glow of offices. In the center was a single, sprawling plane tree, its yellow leaves carpeting the cobblestones. For a moment, the roar of the city melted away, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the distant chime of a clock tower. I kept walking, letting my feet guide me. I stumbled upon Smithfield Market, a colossal Victorian structure where men in white coats, stained from their work, were still hauling crates of meat. I found a tiny, centuries-old pub called the Hand and Shears, all dark wood and etched glass. I went in. It was barely noon, but a few old-timers were nursing pints of ale at the bar. I ordered a pie and a pint. My third piece of advice. Have a proper pub lunch. Not a tourist trap fish and chips, but a steak and ale pie with mash and gravy in a place where the floorboards creak and the bartender knows everyone's name. Sitting there, listening to the low murmur of conversations, I felt more connected to the city than I ever would have in a queue at Madame Tussauds. After lunch, I discovered St. Bartholomew the Great, a Norman church so ancient and heavy with history you could feel it in the cold stone. It felt like a secret the city was sharing only with me. By the time I finally checked my phone and found my way to the Tower of London, it was late afternoon. I did the tour. I saw the ravens. I marveled at the crown jewels. It was magnificent. Exactly as the guidebooks promised. But you know what I remember most vividly from that day? It wasn't the beefeater's speech or the glint of the world's largest diamond. It was the quiet calm of that hidden courtyard. The smell of bacon from a greasy spoon cafe near the market. The rich, dark taste of that first sip of London Pride ale in a pub that had stood there for 400 years. The feeling of being completely, utterly, and wonderfully lost. So, here's my travel plan for you. See one big thing you've always dreamed of seeing. But then, put your phone in your pocket. Find a tube station you've never heard of. Get off and walk. Look up at the blue plaques telling you who lived there. Peek into the gaps between buildings. Find a pub with no music. Order something warm. And just listen. London isn't a checklist, it's a story. Go find a chapter that isn't in the guidebooks. I promise you, it'll be the one you tell for years to come.